So today I'm going to walk you through a new proposal. This proposal is for a new governance staking token for Filecoin. Now, this is an idea a few of us have been kicking around. We've been chatting about it in Crypto Econ Lab, talking with some of the folks from Phil Oz, as well as getting advice from Michael, Tanisha, and many others. So the goal of the staking token that we're proposing is simple. We want to create a system that aligns long-term incentives, governance power for long-term committed actors in the network. We also want to empower and encourage the community to engage in governance. So we would propose that the token has yield. In addition, we want to support sustainable growth for the entire ecosystem. So there should be community governance of network level public goods spending specifically. So that is the focus of this governance token. Okay, so the motivation. So why are we doing this now? First, we strongly believe that some non-zero amount of public goods funding is essential for the ecosystem and is welfare increasing for the network as a whole. So things like developer tooling, infrastructure, and research. These things are important, and to an extent, they might sound abstract, but to make it a little bit more concrete, this means things like Curio, Glyph nodes, Chainlove, Philos, and many of the other great projects which are really essential to the network, just to make that super concrete. Second, the mining reserve is a powerful network asset. We can do nothing with it. That's one option, but we can also do something useful. And I think that's a much more exciting proposition. Third, there is a strategic window in terms of timing. Of course, nobody should over-index in terms of short-term volatility, and we need to plan for the long term. But I think we also need to move quickly, and we shouldn't be complacent. So we need to move as fast as possible, in my opinion. So what this proposal solves for is two things. First of all, the governance gap, which I see, which I'm going to define now, and it's quite a specific thing. So currently, Filecoin lacks formal, on-chain, efficient, transparent, and open and decentralized governance specifically for governing the mining reserve. So that's what we would like to see and are proposing in this proposal. Broadly speaking, there is soft consensus, and this works very effectively for most things, but we think there is a large role for token voting and governing some aspect of how the mining reserve could be used for expenditure on public goods is very suitable in our opinion. The second part is value alignment. So to an extent, the growth in utility hasn't quite matched the level of inflation. This is something that staking can help with to align these things by curbing excessive liquid supply. So this is a secondary effect, but is also a very positive thing for the ecosystem and the network. So just to give you a bit of context also on the motivation for this. So a lot of the motivation comes from public goods in Filecoin. And before we get into the mechanics, I just want to spotlight exactly what we mean by public goods. So if you just stare at this slide and try to absorb it, you'll see that there are tens, actually more than tens, 100 plus easily projects across the network that are contributing to public goods. So this is just an example, not from the current round of Filecoin Retro PGF, but from the prior round, Retro PGF 2. And you can see there's something like 162 projects showcased. A lot of really excellent work. And this is something that's super important and that we think is really important for a thriving ecosystem, and that I think is important to support and grow. So this is the kind of highly valuable thing that we want to see the mining reserve supporting. The core of the proposal is this. What we want to do is empower the community to direct and govern the usage of the mining reserve, or at least some small fraction of it, to be able to fund public goods. So our proposal is to introduce effectively a vote escrow model. This is a concept that has a good track record already. This has a track record, for example, with Curve, and in general, at a high level, and we can get into the details a lot more in written form online, and we absolutely should do that. But at a high level, I kind of see this as a partnership in the broader sense of the word between the protocol and token holders, in the sense that it's those who show long-term commitment by locking their tokens who get the biggest say in governance and the spending of the mining reserve. Yeah. So the mechanics, in essence, are very simple. The longer you lock fill, the more voting power and yield one receives. So there's a few examples set out here, but at a high level, that is the gist of it. So this creates a direct link between long-term conviction and influence over the network. What will we govern? So I've already mentioned in quite a bit of detail public goods. So why? So we want to keep this like super tightly scoped and focused. The goal is to make decisions about the allocation of mining reserve for public goods only. It's not intended to go beyond that. As I've mentioned, the soft consensus process works very effectively for driving many FIPS. Of course, there's improvement that's possible. But in general, we think that it's best to keep the governance staking proposal and token quite scoped. Of course, we've seen, if you look at the history of where governance token voting has been introduced, there are significant risks. So that's why it's critical to keep it super scoped. So some potential examples of what we might want to use a governance token for voting on could be what percentage of the mining reserve should be allocated to fund public goods in the network annually. Should it be 1%, 2%, 3%, and so forth? And you can also imagine other questions like, okay, what percentage, what proportion should be split between retro PGF, experimental programs, and pro PGF? So I think these are really important questions, and I think it would be really valuable for the network to have more people have a say in this and be engaged with it. So in terms of sustainability, we see this proposal as an important step towards sustainable funding of network public goods. So currently, public goods operate on a donation basis. Donations from Filecoin Foundation, Protocol Labs, Titan, Holon, Web3 Mine, Lotus Pond, and a few others. So this is fantastic and it's very good, and very, very grateful to those groups for making those donations. But I think long term, and it's always been the plan, is that we want to move to something more robust and sustainable. And so this proposal should be seen as a step in that direction. So there's multiple ways one could go about making public goods more sustainable. It could be an annual percentage allocation of the mining reserve. It could be something based on yield, or it could be some hybrid model based on block rewards. There are many different approaches, but irrespective of the specific approach, I think having some way to engage the community at large and really make things as decentralized and transparent as possible is something that's like super valuable for long-term growing public goods in the network. Absolutely key to this are the economic considerations. Any proposal that considers touching mining reserve obviously requires extreme care, and the question of sizing in particular is critical. So if the community decides to accept this, we would suggest generating a staking yield from a pool of rewards from the mining reserve to engage people in holding the governance token. So the suggested size might be something like 15 million fill. And this is a reasonable size to target. If you back out some simple numbers, you will see you get a reasonable APY over a reasonable lock-in time, and you get a reasonable size commitment relative to the size of the network. Now, this is a question that I'm not going to dive into the numbers too much here. It's a question that requires much more in-depth analysis, and I know the guys from Crypto Econ Lab will be super happy to help with that. But in essence, the core economic principle is that we want to find a sweet spot. We want to find the minimum amount of funding necessary to elicit the maximum response in terms of having strong, long-term, useful, effective commitments and governance engagement, with at the same time without causing excessive inflation from the staking rewards themselves. Um, in addition, we can envisage a few safeguards, which I would propose including in this. So we could make rewards from the staking on the governance token conditional on the network meeting predefined success KPIs, specifically on network revenue. I think this is a good way to go. In addition, any rewards can be subject to a short period of vesting, for example, 3 months or so. But of course, these questions of exact parameterization and so forth, TBD, based on further discussions, FIP discussions. So as I say, a lot of this will be discussed further in FIP discussions and online, but we really see this proposal as a starting point to kick off something. So there are a number of design questions that we require input on. For example, the extent to which locked initial pledge collateral should be able to exist. So my view is that it should, but others may hold other views. So there's a kind of nuanced discussion there. And at least what we're envisaging is the classic vote escrow style for the model of the governance token. But there are different designs, as Tanisha has set out. So there's also a matter of discussion there. And so something I also really want to emphasize is that what I'm discussing here, and that using part of the mining reserve to generate yield for a governance staking token, really this must be seen in the context of it being a bridge, a catalyst for some type of reignition. Really, long term, we must transition to something more sustainable that's generated, for example, from protocol fees, if we want to proceed by having a governance staking token that has some yield. So sustainability is key long term. Next steps. As I said, this presentation should be the start of a broader conversation with everybody here. We would love to open a FIP discussion to formalize this proposal and understand what the community appetite is. As I mentioned, the guys from Crypto Econ Lab would be super happy to do some more rigorous economic modeling of the different economic parameters. In general, we'd love your input, critiques, and collaboration if you're interested in helping on this proposal. Thanks, Michael.